The Committee on Finance is hereby called to order. The time is 10:03 on Monday, May 24th, 2021. And pursuant to applicable law, my determination that attendance by remote means is necessary because an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent due to the declared public health disaster caused by COVID-19. This meeting is conducted by a video conference. For questions that we have during the meeting, aldermen should use the raise your hand function to indicate they have a question, and members of the committee shall be given preference. If you wish to make a point of order, point of information, or point of clarification while one of your colleagues is speaking, please use that raise your hand function and unmute the microphone. However, if you are on a phone or having difficulties, please feel free to interject, but be respectful of others' time. We will now have a roll call to establish quorum. Please unmute your microphone at the time your name is called, and please note that your yes or present response will be deemed a yes vote when the quorum roll call is used as a reference vote for later items. We will also have 5 speakers today after we go through the roll call. And we will start out with Alderman Brian Hopkins.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Dowell. Alderman King. Alderman Sawyer.
Here.
Alderman Mitchell. Alderman Harris.
Here.
Alderman Beal.
Yep.
Alderman Sadowski Garza.
Here.
Alderman Thompson.
Here.
Alderman Cardenas. Alderman Quinn.
Here.
Alderman Burke.
Here.
Alderman Lopez. Alderman Moore. Alderman Curtis. Alderman O'Shea.
Here.
Alderman Brookins.
Here.
Alderman Tabares.
Here.
Alderman Scott. Alderman Burnett. Alderman Urban.
Burnett is here.
Oh, thank you, Alderman. Alderman Urban.
Alderman Urban is here.
Thank you. Alderman Taliaferro. Alderman Roboris.
Alderman Taliaferro is here.
Gotcha. Alderman Roboris.
Present.
Thank you. Alderman Austin. Alderman Villegas.
Present.
Thank you. Alderman Mitz. Alderman Sposato.
Nick Sposato's here.
Thank you. Alderman Napolitano. Alderman Riley.
Alderman Riley's present.
Alderman Smith.
Here, Chairman.
Thank you. Alderman Tunney.
Present.
Alderman Osterman.
Present.
Alderman Silverstein.
Present.
Alderman Dowell's here, Chairman.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hairston.
Present.
Thank you. And Chairman Waguespack is present.
Alderman Nugent's present.
Thank you, Alderman Nugent. We have 23 members present. I'm sure some others will hop on, and we have a quorum. As I mentioned, we have five speakers today. Our first speaker will be Marilyn May.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, good morning, Chairman, and to all the committee members. I am Marilyn May, and I'm here on behalf of the Black Heroes Matter Coalition. But first, as some of you may know, yesterday was Pentecost Sunday, and so I'd like to pause for a second just to pray that our Heavenly Father continues to pour out the power of the Holy Spirit on this entire city, and especially on you all as you continue in your challenging task of leading and serving Chicago and all the diverse people who live in the city. Well, I'm back this morning to encourage you all to vote yes to Alderman Moore's historic ordinance to rename Outer Lakeshore Drive to John Baptiste Point DuSable Drive during the next full City Council meeting this Wednesday, May 26th. As members of this City Council, all of you must do the right thing, the honorable thing, vote yes. And to the reluctant few who believe that changing Outer Lakeshore Drive to DuSable Drive is impossible, I'm here to remind you that for the past year, leaders and members of the Black Heroes Matter Coalition have come before you week after week to present the facts, the truths, the history, and the deserving reasons why DuSable Drive is possible. I'm here also to remind you not to give in to that spirit that continues to try to permeate its ugliness throughout this city. You must resist it by voting yes. Show your strength, show your wisdom, show your power, show your openness to growth and positive change for this great city. You all know that Chicago is in desperate need of a miraculous turnaround on so many levels. And yes, the yes vote to the DuSable ordinance will be a strong symbolic start. The yes vote will effectuate positive changes in attitudes and behaviors and even actions of people who live here. The city's overall cultural and morale will reverse and begin to improve. Shh. Listen, you hear that? The dynamic, multicultural heartbeat of Chicago is already getting stronger and stronger. Vote yes to DuSable. Rename Outer Lakeshore Drive to John Baptiste Point DuSable Drive. Give Chicago and its people that much needed lifeline. Also, remember to vote yes to our other initiatives, the full city holiday and the funding and building of a 25-foot monument in DuSable's honor. God bless you all, and thank you for this time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is George Blakemore.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. This is Finance Committee, is this correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, so those topics should be specifically on finance, but you were so gracious, Chairman, to allow this lady to speak. Now I'm going to speak on finance. When it comes to, you must be good steward of the taxpayers' money, the citizens' money. Now all this ceremonial streets name, Ida B. Wells and Ida Drive, Black people here enslaved in America, on these urban plantation. This is one of the urban plantations in Chicago. Our people need good jobs and contracts and service. And they must, you must be prudent with that money and put that money in the ghetto to uplift the people who have been left behind in this nation. So again, I urge each one of you that's sitting on this Finance Committee. The golden rule is he who has the gold rule. The ghetto need money. The Black people need money. We need reparation to catch up. The other groups are financially ahead of us, receiving these jobs, goods, contracts, and service. So again, it's very, 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 very important to have Mr. Blakemore to speak on the behalf of his community. And his community is your community. Together we are community. No child, no Black man, no schools or anything supposed to be inferior to whites and other groups in this city. Now, it's honorable to say we want a street to be named after a Black man, but it's more productive for Black people to get good jobs, contracts, and service. Equity, that word means equal. We are unequal. The way we are treated by the police department, by the Board of Education, by the Park District, all these city agencies, the Water Department. Here, we have a culture of corruption, institutional racism. Now, to be a world-class city, you must lift all of your citizens, all of them equally, and finance these people, my people, our people, in the same way that you finance the people in the white community. Thank you. Now you're going to beat me out, but you let this...
Thank you, Mr. Blakemore. Next up, we have Dwayne Jarrett. I see Mr. Jarrett is on the call. Can you hear us?
Mr. Jarrett, please press *6 on your phone to unmute. *6.
Okay. I'm on. Dwayne Jarrett, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good morning. I'm representing Blacks and Green, located in West Woodlawn. I am also a tree keeper with Open Lands. And I wanted to talk with you about the importance of the Department of Forestry and maintaining trees in our communities, particularly the Black and Brown communities on the south and west sides that are suffering and have been suffering from benign neglect over the years. Our tree canopies have been diminishing. They are recovering because of the work of Open Lands and Department of Forestry. We have established Blacks and Green with the help of Open Lands Tree Keeper Program, 2 community gardens in the 1600 block of St. Lawrence Avenue. And changes in this small area of West Woodlawn have been profound over the last 8 years. Neighbors are moving back in. Former owners of vacant properties that have been are coming back. Trash pickup have been diminished. We don't have to clean up our neighborhood as much as we did in past years because of these gardens. They become meeting places. I'm encouraging the planting and maintenance and the dedication of new jobs for community residents in maintaining these tree canopies because of their profound benefit on many levels to the community. Heat island mitigation, lowering of crime in areas that are well kept with tree canopies, healthy tree canopies. There are countless studies that show that the crime on all levels is mitigated, is reduced by a community with a healthy tree canopy. I grew up in a family that was plagued by asthma. One of the major contributors to asthma is urban environmental pollution.
Thank you, Mr. Jarrett. I want to let you know that we are having a subject matter hearing on that today, so we hope you stay tuned in for the meeting. Next, we will move to Nancy.
Yes, my name is Nancy Joseph. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay.
I speak as a resident in Vice Chairman Hairston's ward who cares passionately about trees and as a volunteer who is dedicated to caring for them. As a volunteer open lands tree keeper, I lead and participate in weekly volunteer work days in Hyde Park and on the south side to prune and maintain city park and parkway trees. In 2020, tree keeper volunteers across the city pruned more than 4,000 city trees. I also personally care for the 120 cherry trees around the Columbia Basin in Jackson Park. If you made it out to enjoy the splendor the cherry blossoms provided after our difficult COVID winter, you would have witnessed the hope and delight that the cherry blossoms brought to the thousands of Chicagoans who visited this April. I guarantee you that the cherry trees lifted the spirits of those who visited. Additionally, as a master naturalist, I regularly speak with residents about the benefits of trees and how one oak tree can provide benefits to more than 500 insects and animals. So I trust that the experiences that I've just shared with you will assure you of my investment in and commitment to Chicago trees. So to me, the creation of the Urban Forest Advisory Board seems like a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we want to join forestry and community leaders with the numerous city departments that deal with trees to create a strategic plan and policies to build back our urban canopy? Isn't an integrated approach to caring for our trees likely to be the most effective and cost-efficient one? After the emerald ash borer blight, our urban tree canopy has now fallen to just 16%, one of the lowest of any major city. Our residents deserve better. The benefits of trees are numerous but are often overlooked. First of all, they can benefit infrastructure by helping manage stormwater runoff through absorption, reducing heating costs by shading buildings, and removing pollutants from the air. Secondly, research is showing that trees provide health benefits to residents by improving mental health and well-being, speeding recovery time from illness, and reducing stress even in the wintertime. And finally, the urban canopy offers some mitigation to climate change by storing carbon dioxide and lowering temperatures by intercepting sunlight and releasing water vapor. So these benefits should be sufficiently compelling to warrant building the best policy on trees through enabling the Urban Forestry Advisory Board. Before I conclude, I want to ask if you've recently spotted a cardinal or an oriole or a robin in a tree, or perhaps seen a hummingbird racing by. Have you smiled at the sight of a bright pink redbud tree announcing spring, or taken a whiff of the fragrant blooming linden tree? Trees add so much to our lives. Let's help Chicago.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph. Our next speaker is Mr. Andrew Sparks.
Good morning, Chairman and Council members. My name is Andrew Sparks. I'm the Community Programs Director with Latinos Progresando, located in the South Lawndale Little Village neighborhood. Our aldermen are Alderman Cardenas, Alderman Rodriguez, and Alderman Scott. We specialize in immigration legal services, and we also convene 45 other organizations through the Marshall Square Resource Network. I'm also here to express my support for the creation of an Urban Forestry Advisory Board for the City of Chicago. Throughout our work, we're constantly having conversations with students, parents, business owners, and other organizational leaders. We're hearing that air quality in our neighborhood is a top concern and that people want clean air. We're hearing that young people and their parents want to spend more time outdoors to learn more about green space and how it benefits human health. And we're hearing that residents want investment in green infrastructure to have beautiful, cool, safe streets to walk. More and more community members are telling us that they care about their natural environment and the mental, physical, communal benefits that it brings. What we know is that trees clean our air by reducing particulate matter and pollutants. We know that trees make streets more walkable and encourage outdoor activity. And we know that trees control flooding and excessive heat and provide key community gathering places. We also know that trees are disappearing across the city, especially in areas like ours in South Lawndale that already lag in terms of green space and tree coverage. And that unless we act decisively, we will continue to lose this vital resource in our city. Our work at Latinos Progresando and with our partners centers on building healthy, supportive environments so that residents can thrive. And we believe that the creation of an urban forestry advisory board is a critical step to better build and sustain these healthy, supportive environments for everyone in our city. And so we ask that the committee vote yes on the Urban Forestry Advisory Board proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sparks. That ends the public speaking section of our meeting today. Before I go on, I'm going to add Alderman King, Mitchell, Moore, and Napolitano to the quorum call. Is there anybody else who showed up that I might have missed here? And I see Alderman Cardona has joined as well. Give me 1 second just to check here.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So King, Mitchell, Moore, Napolitano have been added to the roll call. Our first item here then is the approval of the Rule 45 report. You should have in front of you the minutes per that Rule 45 of the March Committee on Finance meeting. Does anyone have any questions or changes on that? All right. May I have a motion to approve the Rule 45 report by the affirmative vote of all members present for the roll call used to establish quorum?
So moved.
And that was moved by Alderman
Thompson.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, our second item is a communication recommending a proposed amendment to Municipal Code Chapter 10-32 by adding new section 10-32-245 to establish the Urban Forestry Advisory Board. Adam Flores from my staff will be testifying to the details of the ordinance, and we will also hear from Malcolm Whiteside, Deputy Commissioner of Forestry from the Department of Streets and Sanitation, and Jeff Brink from CDOT. And if anybody has any comments, this was, I think, the content of several dozen letters of support that were sent out to everyone for this ordinance. So we'll begin the discussion with Adam Flores from my staff, and I'll comment on it as well. Thank you. Adam?
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Alderman. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Again, I'm Adam Flores, policy analyst with the Committee on Finance, here to present on O-2020-3651, which would establish the Urban Forestry Advisory Board. The Urban Forestry Advisory Board would be an all-volunteer 13-member panel consisting of 7 ex officio members, including the Deputy Commissioner for Forestry, the CDOT Commissioner, the DWM Commissioner, the Park District CEO Superintendent, DPD Commissioner, the Chief Sustainability Officer, and the Chair of the Committee on Environmental Protection and Energy. The other 6 members of the board will be mayoral appointees with the consent of the City Council. Excuse me. 2 of those would be non-governmental representatives from the Chicago Region Trees Initiative, 1 from a non-governmental community organization, 2 from representing tree service businesses or contractors, and then 1 academic arborist. The appointed members would serve 4-year terms, and there are 5 main duties for this proposed board. The first would be to develop and annually update an urban forestry management plan that contains analysis and recommendations to be delivered to the mayor and city council. Second, review and assess city policies, plans, and procedures, as well as expenditures and guidance documents. Third, the board would have the ability to recommend legislation to the city council regarding urban forestry issues. Fourth would be to facilitate a public education program around urban forestry. And then finally, the 5th is to establish a heritage tree program. Heritage tree in the ordinance is defined as a tree of special significance to the city because of its size, age, or historical horticultural value. For these members, they would not be, as I've stated earlier, volunteers, so there's no additional compensation. And they would be required to meet at least quarterly with the ability to call additional meetings by majority of the board. And finally, the ordinance would have an immediate effective date upon passage. I believe that covers all of the main provisions of the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Before we go to questions, I wanted to go through all of our speakers, and I had Malcolm Whiteside and Jeff Brink ready to speak as well, but I'll have Alderman Cardenas and Alderman Nugent speak to this as well because they've been working pretty diligently on this. I did speak to the water commissioner this morning. There was concerns about such an advisory board being able to put a stop to emergency tree removals or basically dictating day-to-day operations. And along with conversations with many aldermen, I wanted to reassure you that that is not the way this advisory board would work. We've looked at other cities that do something similar, and that type of interaction is not what is either intended or written in, and definitely not the policy outcome that would happen here. So just want to reassure everybody that this is an advisory board to really help us kind of move forward into the future on how we rebuild our canopy. With that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Whiteside.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Malcolm Whiteside Jr. I'm 33-year Bureau of Forestry employee, certified arborist for 25 years, deputy commissioner since 2006. Council members, trees need care and management just like the streets need repaving or the snow needs removal in the winter and new pipes laid throughout the city. My reason for supporting an urban forestry advisory board is pretty much what Adam said. It's going to assist with policy and municipal ordinance updates. It's also going to should be able to address street trees, but also public trees, trees that own parks and private trees. Policy changes through an urban and forestry advisory board will help the city of Chicago make practical decisions and help maintain, preserve, and enhance our street and public trees. With this board, we should also be able to obtain corporate donations for tree planting so we can join your all just unnecessary removals and damage of trees.
Malcolm, we're losing your signal there. Sorry.
An urban forestry advisory board would assist with educating the public, department heads, council members. Most importantly, forestry maintains its 500,000 parkwood trees. And I just thank you for your support.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I think one of the things that we've talked about too in general.
Just thank you for your support, Alderman, on this advisory.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I think one of the things before I go to Jeff Brink. Oh, sorry to interrupt you. Can you, Malcolm, go ahead. Right, I think we just have a bad connection there. I think one of the things I wanted to point out too, and my colleagues will as well, is that this is really about having an advisory board that can help us with the federal funding that's going to be needed once the forestry funding runs out in a couple of years, and also support things like Senator Durbin's Conservation Corps, which would be an important workforce component of that hopefully federal program that comes through, and the advisory board working with them to really create some of those jobs and get some of the funding. But let me next jump to Jeff Brink from CDOT. Jeff, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Chairman Waxback and Alderman of the Committee on Finance. I'm Jeff Brink, Senior City Forester for the Chicago Department of Transportation and Certified Arborist. On behalf of CDOT, thank you for this opportunity to share with you our full support for the proposed amendment to the Chicago Landscape Ordinance Municipal Code, Chapter 1032, by adding the new section 1032-245 to establish the Urban Forestry Advisory Board. This amendment will benefit Chicago and CDOT greatly. It will strengthen our robust landscape ordinance, improve interdepartmental coordination and cohesiveness, promote greater public awareness, appreciation, and education surrounding our community's trees, and make our urban forests even more resilient and sustainable for Chicago's future generations, no matter the challenges that lie ahead. With the growing threats of pests and pathogens and the ever-expanding built environment, all affecting Chicago's diverse tree population of over 525,000 parkway trees, it is imperative that we as stewards of the urban forests continue Chicago's long legacy of planting, promoting, and protecting these value-appreciating assets. The benefits of trees are numerous. They offer us shade from the summer sun, cool our homes, clean our air and water, improve our mental and physical health, provide tangible environmental benefits, build stronger communities, engender a greater appreciation for nature, and remembers our loved ones of the past. With large mature trees providing the majority of these benefits, the advisory board, with its diverse panel of members from various city departments, non-for-profits, tree industry, and academia, will develop and update an urban forestry management plan and establish a heritage tree program which seeks to identify trees of special significance. And with that, let me end with a quote from Chicago's first forester, Jacob H. Prost. "The tree in the city repays 1,000-fold every bit of care and attention bestowed upon it." So thus, I encourage all of you to vote yes for this amendment to establish the Urban Forestry Advisory Board. Thank you for this time, and thank you for your support.
Thanks very much, Jeff. And I think for a lot of people, it's good to see your face on there as the senior city forester. It's really important, I think, to know who's taking care of our trees. So we appreciate you coming on and having this discussion with us.
Thank you.
You bet. Next, I will go to Alderman Cardenas. Are you available? No. Alderman Nugent.
Morning. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. I'm here today in support of the Urban Forestry Advisory Board. The City of Chicago has long needed a pragmatic plan on how to preserve and enhance our urban forest. In addition to making our city look more beautiful, more trees help reduce the rate of asthma in kids. It helps cool our city, particularly in areas known as heat islands, and it provides absorption for rainwater, and it helps mitigate flooding. By bringing together our city partners, conservationists and preservationists, we can work towards a more sustainable solution in protecting our tree canopy. This advisory board is offering an opportunity for colleagues from CDOT, water, and forestry to share the rules they're required to follow in their daily operations, often in support of public health and safety, and workshop ideas that could help have a much greater tree canopy. Removing trees is an unfortunate reality of some of the work that must be done, but with the guidance of this board, we can be thoughtful and creative in where and how we replace our trees. The purpose of this board is to advise. The ordinance will provide framework for the membership and meeting dates of this board. It will come together to suggest future policy opportunities and will not alter existing departmental procedures and policies. I'm committed to working with you, Chairman, the Council, colleagues in CDOT, water, and forestry, as well as conservationists to make this advisory council support meaningful change. Thank you all for your time and consideration. I respectfully request your support for this. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Alderman Nugent. And I appreciate all the work that you've been putting into it with your staff, doing a lot of the meetings and working through a lot of the questions. It's been very helpful, and glad to have you as a partner in moving this forward. Before I move on to Alderman Smith, I want to recognize Alderman Lopez. Are you Alderman Raymond Lopez? I've got you for a quorum. I'm sorry, I was just looking through the list there.
Sorry, Chairman, I was just wanting to be recognized for the purposes of quorum. Thank you.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Alderman Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to thank you and the lead sponsors on this effort. I think it's a very, very important one. Our community really values its trees, and the ash thing has been very difficult for everyone. So I think it's very important that we do make this a priority for the health of our communities and to help do what we can to mitigate, of course, global warming. So I just wanted to thank you, and I'm proud to be a co-sponsor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman Smith. Alderman Sadowski Garza.
Chairman, appreciate it. And thank you everybody for putting this forward. I'm hoping that we can dispel some rumors that are out there. I was having a hard time with Commissioner Whiteside understanding what he was saying. I don't know if my connection was bad or it was his, but
No, it was his connection. That's okay.
Okay. So the rumor mills are abuzz with, they're trying to put forestry on a tree trim on a grid system. And I was just hoping that you could dispel that. That's really my one and only question.
We, as part of the advisory board, we have not discussed that as a priority or a particular issue, that was sort of rising to the top. I think that type of policy change is something that the aldermen as a whole, working with the department, need to decide, and with the administration, how to move forward on that. That was not the priority of any kind for this advisory board.
Okay, wonderful. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor as well then. And thank you for doing this. That's all. Thank you.
You're welcome. Alderman Sposato.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have one question, and that's with the discretionary. If somebody could, first of all, thanks to my colleagues for their hard work, Samantha Nugent and George Cardenas. I appreciate all the work you put into this, but my one fear is the discretionary. So I have a policy. I know my policy is financial burden upon a household. I don't know what everybody else's policy is, but when somebody's got to have their pipes rotted, every year, sometimes twice a year because of the trees, that's a concern to me. And more often than not, when we take trees down as the city or as an individual, people want another tree right away. So I see more of a problem is getting trees for people. Friend of mine, constituent, just had a dead tree taken down, and he's just can't get a tree fast enough for him. I'm like, look, buddy, it just doesn't go that fast. I mean, you're not going to get a new tree tomorrow. So maybe this advisory board will help get us more trees and get them faster. But my main concern is, and I don't know who can answer it, is where do we stand with discretionaries?
Yeah, the answer would be no, but I'll let Adam discuss it a little further.
Thank you.
Adam?
Hi there, sorry. Can you see me? Perfect. So yeah, kind of reiterating what some of the points have been so far, this doesn't immediately change any sort of departmental policies or dictate to like the Bureau of Forestry what they should be doing day to day. What it will do is allow for these departmental cross-departmental conversations to take place to find new funding opportunities that would be able to go towards that piece that you're speaking to right now, Alderman. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great. So hopefully this committee could, the biggest accomplishment they could accomplish as far as I'm concerned is get a bunch of grants for more trees, because when people want trees and we can't get them for them and we only plant so many a year, that would be a great thing. So, okay, I appreciate it, Adam. Appreciate it, Chairman. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Water wasn't able to make it today, so we still have to have a little bit of a conversation there. I did discuss with them the same question that you just asked in regards to water projects, but I'll need to get more clarification from them to all of you. Alderman O'Shea.
Thank you, Chairman. I too stand in support of this ordinance. We'll remember 20 some odd years ago, Asian longhorn beetle, most recently emerald ash borer. I can only speak for my community. Being in the southwest corner of the city, our suburban municipalities to the west and south of me did nearly nothing to prevent the spread of that. So that, although we were inoculating trees, essentially trying to buy time with the hope that they could withstand the spread of the fungus, we've been devastated here. Hundreds of trees in my parks, the Dan Ryan Forest Preserve, my local cemeteries in the ward, I have 3 of them, thousands of trees Never mind just trees as part of our urban canopy on parkways and backyards. I support this measure. When you look at a heat map of what the canopy was in my community just 20 years ago and what it is today, it's really sad to see. So I appreciate everybody's efforts on this, and I look forward to being a part of it moving forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Alderman. And one point on that, the advisory board in concept would work with groups like MWRD, Cook County Forestry to look beyond our borders. A lot of our suburban neighbors didn't take the same, undertake the same effort that you might have in your ward, but we have to be interdependent there. So that was one of the questions that came up was, would we be communicating with those other suburban cities or villages? And that's a definite thing to rebuild the canopy, because that Asian ash borer, it travels everywhere and it's devastated the Park District and the forest preserves just as much as it has our city. So that's a good point. Thank you. Alderman Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. My colleague, Alderman Sposato, asked about the discretionary. So that was, I think, my concern previously when this came up. And I do think this is a fantastic idea. We had a discussion, an ordinance earlier this year regarding the air quality ordinance and the impact that pollution and air quality has in the city. And I think this goes hand in glove with that. It's a fantastic idea. I fully support this. We need to look at planting more trees. We need to do a comprehensive plan, and whether that be requiring it as part of plan developments and how we can look at this comprehensively. So I too would like to be added as a co-sponsor, and I appreciate it. And I thank all my colleagues for all their hard work. Alderman, my neighbor, Alderman Cardenas, and Alderman Nugent. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman. Alderman David Moore.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I definitely don't see myself as a tree expert, so I definitely have to rely on other experts or people that's working on there. And so I thank my colleague, Alderman Nick Sposato, for bringing up that issue. And I guess the answer was not, I thought I heard not immediate. I'm hoping this is not at all will affect discretionary trees. So I need somebody to state that clearly before I vote on this Wednesday. So I just want to be clear about it, because I heard something not immediate. So make that clear if I'm incorrect. The other part to that is, I know that Malcolm Whiteside is in favor of this, someone that does a great job in forestry, especially over in my ward. And so if he supports it, I want to be supportive of it, but I need to really get clarity around the discretionary, because I thought I heard not immediate, so I need to understand that. The other part is, while we're planting trees, types of trees are very important. Sometimes I drive through different areas and there's trees we got to know that grow out, that cost us constant money to trim, and then some neighborhoods do not get trimmed probably. But I know there are certain trees that grow a different way. They don't grow straight out. They may grow up, but they don't grow straight out into the streets covering up light. So I guess it's more or less, I don't know if any tree experts are on the phone to talk to that, so that we just not planting trees for trees' sake, but we're planting the right kind of trees that could be that can also be cost effective for forestry having to do a whole bunch of cutting. And so if somebody can definitely speak to those 2 points in terms of the discretionary, making it clear, because I heard not immediate, so I need to be clear about that, and then the types of trees.
Chairman, Adam. Yeah, on that first point, Adam Flores here from the Committee on Finance. Thank you for catching that. Again, the board has the ability to recommend changes to policies, but it does not have the power to change them and dictate internal policies. That would still be up to city council policy, legislation, or how individual departments ultimately change their procedure. So thank you for catching. It would not impact that discretionary piece.
All right, and then the second part, if somebody can talk about the types of trees, because it's easy to say plant more trees, but the type of trees that we plant, do anyone see that across the city as I do, like certain trees that don't grow sort of wet out, like, covering up the lights, but yet they grow up? Anybody familiar with that? That can save us money from doing a whole bunch of cutting? Anybody aware of that?
I think, yeah, let me have Mr. Brink or Commissioner Whiteside speak to that. Jeff, if you want to jump in first, or Malcolm, go ahead. Sorry, Commissioner.
Thank you. Alderman Moore, we plant between 14 to 16 different genera, which includes hundreds of different species and hundreds of different cultivars. You are correct. There are trees that have shapes that are in upright or columnar fashion. We have trees that spread, and all of these trees are urban tolerant trees. Our least common denominator is soil volumes coupled with winter de-icing compounds. The guide to the Chicago Landscape Ordinance is very specific. We have certain offsets from intersections, alley intersections, driveway intersections, utilities. Light poles specifically is 12-foot offsets from there so that we do not block the lighting shed from those lights. But we will work with any community, and during the actual surveys, we are extremely conscious of what trees we're specifying in each ward, anywhere, because we certainly do not want to put the public at risk. Public safety is number one.
All right,
Commissioner?
I guess somebody else is about to say something.
I was just letting Commissioner Whiteside jump in there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Moore, just like what Senior City Forester Jeff Brink stated, but we got to remember also the landscape ordinance came out in the 1990s when we enhanced it. So all the trees you see in are trees that were planted pre-1990, and a lot of those trees have, like you said, exposed curbs or sidewalks, and those are things that we are, looking into now. But like Jeff said, the trees that we're planting now, we won't have those issues moving forward into the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
If I could add just one last thing, as far as tree planting, we are reviewing tree planting not only on the public side, but also on the private plan development side. Trees are required for all plan developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you both. And again, I wanted to get water in this meeting, and I think a little late there for them to come in, but they have issues that are similar to what aldermen are asking at the moment that hopefully we've mitigated. But let me go to Vice Chair Hairston first.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank my colleagues for all of their hard work on this, and asked to be a co-sponsor. I just have two quick questions, and I think one is for Adam. There is nothing currently that prevents the departments from talking to one another now, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And then the other one is for Malcolm. Where are we in terms of tree limb trimming? How far behind are we now?
We are currently working on anything that was recorded to 311 May 1st of 2020.
Okay, so provided that we're able to get these other trees, will we need to increase the budget for tree limb trimming for manpower?
Most definitely, Alderman. I mean, I've lost personnel from retirements that hasn't been uplifted, so that needs to be looked into.
Okay, so could you do me a favor and prepare something for members of the Finance Committee, what you would need to have a full complement in your department so that we can, not just put words to it, but actually back it up with support. I think that would be helpful to all of our colleagues.
I will do.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman. And I think that's something with the advisory group that the people I've spoken to that are very interested in it want to see funding increased, and they want to see more arborists. And that's important to all of them to increase that budget. So we can get that through the chair. Commissioner, if you can put a rough draft together or something like that, that would be helpful. for all the aldermen.
We'll do it.
Alderman Brookins.
Thanks, Chair. I appreciate the topic today. I think that the most important thing that I've heard was regarding the public education. I think that that's what's been missing with respect to planting the trees, public education, and a consistent message across departments. Specifically, while we didn't have a significant rainy season this year with a lot of floods, but we always get people when their basement flood to say that it was the tree's fault. We get the water department to come out and say, no, you really need to do regular maintenance with respect to your sewer service to prevent that. But it's not dispelled over each and every department, and people inundate the alderman with requests to remove trees, assuming that the immediate removal of the tree is going to solve their problem with respect to basement flooding. So I support the ordinance. I think that if there's an insufficient budget for public education regarding these issues, which lead the aldermen to utilize discretionary removals, maybe then that's something that we need to do, but we do need more trees. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Brookins. Commissioner, was there anything you wanted to respond on that, or you're okay?
Thanks, Alderman Brookins. You hit it right on the head. You know, education is key. And I think I would take probably full responsibility for not getting more education out to the public. I know when we used to go to community meetings, we tried to educate the public then. But like you said, it's a hard sell sometimes, trying to let the public know that the tree is not your enemy and not the cause of all your issues. But it's hard to sell when you got a plumber coming out from private industry telling them, you know, this is going to be your bill and the tree is the problem. So it's hard, but I think if we can get an educational piece out by having this board, we might solve a lot of the issues.
Thanks, Commissioner. Alderman Burnett.
Thank you. Also, I'd like to commend my colleagues. I think this is a great idea. Have we ever thought about removing trees that are a challenge and trying to preserve them, trying to move them somewhere else?
That might be a question for Mr. Brink or the Commissioner. Either one of you wanted to.
I'm gonna defer to Jeff because transplanting is hard, especially once a tree gets to a certain age. Yeah, the stress of a tree, even from a new tree, a tree when it's newly planted is already 10 years old. So now when you got a more mature tree, the transplanting stress is even worse. The danger is more compiling. So that's why we don't transplant trees. I don't know, Jeff, you want to add on that?
No, yes, I would. You're absolutely right. It's cost prohibitive. When a tree gets over 4 inches in diameter, or let's dial back. When a tree is transplanted from the nurseries, we're already removing between 12 to 18% of the root mass. And what does that mean? That means that it takes that much longer for the tree to establish. So if we're going to be transplanting trees of greater caliper or greater diameter, we're going to be set back even further, and it actually be more cost prohibitive because studies have shown that planting a 2.5-inch tree versus a 4-inch tree over the course of 3 to 5 years, the smaller of the two trees, the 2.5-inch tree, will outgrow and outcompete the larger diameter tree. So at this point, it does not make financial sense to be transplanting trees of greater caliper. Thank you.
Okay, just trying to think of a way to preserve these trees that cause like drainage problems. All of those. Okay. You know, also I see some trees now. I'm starting to get complaints about some trees that have these little things falling off of them. They like, I don't know what kind of trees those are that you all planted. They have like
helicopters.
Yeah, not helicopters, not those, but little beige things, and they kind of clog up the sewers. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I think what you're referring to, Alderman, is you're referring to the numerous seeds that are falling right now from some of our elms and maples. And that's indicative of drought, which underscores the necessity for the adjoining property owners and business owners to go out, especially during the summer months of July, August, and September, and give a little extra water to the trees at least once every 10 to 14 days. And that should help mitigate the number of seeds that are being produced. When we have high seed, such as this year, that is a true indication that the trees are slightly under stress. And what they're doing is they're sending out their progeny to try to continue the life cycle.
All right. Yeah, so now you get complaints from people that, man, these things are all over the place. I had to keep sweeping up around the sewer because of, so everybody wants the trees, but everyone don't want some of the things that happen with the trees, right?
Correct. So understanding the canopy or the urban forestry canopy and the actual genera makeup, we understand that maple represents a larger portion of our urban canopy. And with maple producing the samaras or the seeds that you are seeing falling down, we are trying to greatly reduce the amount of maple due to the representation, because it has a much far greater implication. If we look at ash represents about 19% of the canopy cover, whereas according to the 2009 urban forest metrics that was taken by the USDA Forest Service, it actually shows that the urban forestry canopy that maple represents exceeds 40%. And that is a very high amount of maple. And so consequently, we want to reduce that. So on all the plan developments that I review through CDOT, we are eliminating certain genera, that including Acer, which is maple, Gleditsia, which is honey locust, and anything invasive such as Pyrus, which is pear tree. So hopefully with that mitigation, we will start to reduce the amount of seed or available seed that's coming down on the grounds over the course of time.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman Burnett. That sounded kind of like a little master's course on tree there, but that was fantastic. Thanks, Jeff. Alderman Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank the co-sponsors for this ordinance, and I'd like to, thank the sponsors, and I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor. I have a couple of questions. One, I guess this is to Malcolm. Malcolm, one of the things I'm seeing a lot of is mature trees pushing up sidewalks. Have you all assessed how bad this problem is across the city? And is this something that this advisory committee will be working on?
To answer your question, no. Good morning. We have not looked across the city. We kind of let CDOT take the lead on that when they're doing the assessments on sidewalks. If there's a situation where the sidewalk is raised at a certain depth, I'm not sure what the depth is, they normally would call me and say, hey, we have a situation. Can you meet us on site? And we will mediate and decide what needs to take the next step.
Okay, so the question I should be directing that is to CDOT. In terms of the budget that Vice Chair Hairston has asked you to put together, I think that's great. I know you are in need of additional crews and resources. Wanted to know how the removal of tree trunks impacts the work that you do, and if we need to invest more money in that.
When you mean tree trunks, as in
trees that have been, trees that have been cut down, you usually have a private contractor come back.
Yes, ma'am. Well, the contract is up right now, so it's supposed to be going out for bid, and we've expanded it where it used to be just in 2 regions. Now we've expanded to 4 regions. So hopefully we'll get more participation on that level, which will get the stumps completed at a quicker pace than they are now. Yes, and that's what we're aiming towards.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. I think that's something we should definitely do more of. I just think this is a great ordinance, a good start, and look forward to being a co-sponsor on this, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman King.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate all of my colleagues here. Definitely want to be added as a co-sponsor. Emphasize what Alderman Hairston was saying about the budget, just to highlight the commissioner's work, because it's hard when you don't have the budget, I think, to implement all the things and the requests that you get. But just a quick follow-up and really a clarification on the question about whether trees can actually penetrate sewers. I've heard different things about that, and I know a couple aldermen have talked about that, but is it true that trees cannot penetrate sewer lines and then cause the disruption in the sewers that we get a lot of calls about from residents, or can they? I've heard back and forth that there's not a hole there already, the trees can't penetrate it. But I see the strength of trees lifting sidewalks, and so can someone please clarify that for me? I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Alderman, I give you the simple response. I'm gonna let Jeff give you the scientific response. Simple response is no. There was a study done by the University of Milwaukee showing, and we have the study ourselves, and I can share with you, where at that depth, the trees do not actually physically penetrate. There has to be an existing crack in the lines for the tree roots to enter those pipes. And that's what we deal with on a daily basis with that. Jeff?
I absolutely agree. Look, trees need water and they need nutrient to live. And the predominant amount of tree roots run between the first 3 to 18 inches of soil layer. So if the trees are finding nutrient, there must be a crack in the line. I go back to the adage that if we could send humans to the moon, we should be able to figure out how we can remove the waste from our buildings and homes safely to the filtration plants. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Alderman Sigcho Lopez, and then Napolitano.
Thank you, Chairman. And first, let me thank the sponsors of the bill. I think this is a very important initiative. I'd like to be recognized as a co-sponsor. And I just have a quick question. In terms of the, I know that this is great to have an advisory board to connect to the different communities. I know Alderman O'Shea mentioned about the different issues that we have in the different neighborhoods, right? 77 neighborhoods. So I do think it's important to see how we can connect with the different community groups, the different neighborhoods across the city. So in terms of the community engagement and how this advisory board will receive initiatives perhaps from or ideas or policy recommendations, that's my quick question. How will that interaction work in terms of how do we submit from the community perspective proposals or initiatives for the advisory board to consider, and how will they connect for these kind of policy discussions? And thank you again.
I can take that. Adam Flores from the Committee on Finance. There's nothing written directly into the ordinance specifying how that interaction occurs, but there is, given that these will be public meetings, when they do meet, there will be allowed public comment. There's also the public education piece to this as well, which will facilitate engagement from the board members and the communities around the city. And then on top of it, excuse me, one of the members is a representative of a community organization, so that it's not just specifically folks necessarily working on trees, but folks from the neighborhoods who are impacted by these issues. So it's not defined in ordinance and statute, but there are multiple avenues where someone can provide comment and provide ideas to the board members.
Thank you. Thank you. That's super helpful. And in terms of just the last one in follow-up, what is the timeline in terms of having the advisory board set up? I know that, granted this passes and is approved at the next council meeting. What is the timeline in terms of having the advisory board now fully operating?
I'm not sure I can give a full answer on that, given that one, we have the ex officio members, so they'll be automatically thrown in there. But then we have the 6 appointees, so it would be dependent on how fast the mayor's office and the city council can consider those appointees as well.
Got it. Thank you so much, and happy to help make this initiative happen sooner rather than later. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And Alderman Andrew Spark from Latinos Progresando also testified. I don't know if you were able to hear him at the beginning, but we envision groups like his really being sort of the support base for policy initiatives, especially on racial equity. We know that that is a very important issue in even the tree canopy and how it's either been damaged or not improved over the decades. So that's part and parcel of what Andrew was speaking to and some of the other groups that we want to engage, especially on the education piece for new up and coming youth discussions and all sorts of things around that, so that if our generation, can get the education that they're kind of pushing it as well. But that's something we can continue to work on with it.
Thank you, Chairman.
You bet. Alderman Napolitano.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak, Chairman. Just a couple of very quick questions, and excuse my ignorance if I didn't have these answers. I was trying to find them, so maybe they can give me a quick answer on them. As far as this advisory committee, where were they? Are they going to be drawing a budget from a department, a specific department, or will it be operating on a budget at all?
No.
Okay.
This would essentially be members of the other existing departments. And at the beginning, there were also appointees from the Chicago Region Trees Initiative, which are members include Morton Arboretum, the Cook County Forest Preserve. So, we could have rotating people on that, and then the other entities that would be involved, but there's no budget for it. The finance committee staff would help manage meetings, until we get the whole thing up and running. The budget that we're envisioning is really focused on getting more budget into the hands of our departments to get more people involved, hired, all the different things that they would need that aldermen are speaking to right now.
Okay. And as far as currently, as far as tree planting, for trees that are planted citywide or throughout the city, does that what budget does that come from currently as of right now?
Commissioner Whiteside or Jeff Brink could answer that. Depends on what type of project it is. So Jeff can speak to, I think, plan developments, which we see a lot of in the Plan Commission, and have questions there, which they've been answering, and then Malcolm can answer the other one.
Right. Currently this year, Alderman, good morning.
Morning,
the
sir.
capital improvement funds has funded my tree planting for this year, $2.5 million. If it wasn't for those capital improvements, my budget would be $500,000 for tree planting.
And Commissioner, I think you mentioned before too that budget is only there for a couple of years, and then we have to find more funding. And I think that's where we envision this group going. We've talked about reaching out to corporate sponsors, reaching out to federal government sponsors like Conservation Corps to try to bring more funding in to get you back up to par.
That's correct, Alderman.
And really quick, based on that though, so going forward, if these funds aren't found, would more tree planting be removed from the forestry's budget? For planting, that is?
That's really up to budget, Alderman. Like I said, right now, if it wasn't for the capital improvement, we only have $500,000, which would be what we use for tree. a tree average cost is $500 per tree.
All right, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Burnett. Alderman Burnett, I didn't know if you had a second question there. Okay, if not, we have a lot of questions here today. I know that the water department had some things that they wanted to clarify. We'll get that down on paper. We will get the budget funding draft from Commissioner Whiteside for all of you to take a look at. And I appreciate both Mr. Brink and Commissioner Whiteside for their information today, because I think it's really important for the future. And I know that most aldermen will want to be on this, so we can work to make sure everybody that wants to be is on it. Alderman Cardenas is not here today, so I'm going to hold this in committee. I know everybody wanted to, a lot of people outside wanted to pass this today, but I will get you the other answers through the chair and the main co-sponsor there to comment on it, and we will would like to take a vote on this in June. So I apologize if we were looking at trying to pass it, but we will hold it until next month. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Malcolm. We really appreciate your input on this today.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. It's always been a pleasure to serve this great city.
Well, and I think both you and the commissioner should testify more often, because I think there was some pretty good information today that we don't often hear. And it's helpful to have aldermen, kind of keyed in on some of the issues that you're working on. So we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your input on that item number 2. We're going to move on to item number 3. Item number 3 is a communication recommending a proposed ordinance to amend the authorizing ordinance regarding the redevelopment agreement with Our Revival Chicago LLC for acquisition of Ramova Theater, adjacent parcel, and provision of tax increment financing assistance funds. We're going to be joined today by Terrence Johnson from Planning for testimony on this matter. And after that, I'll have Alderman Thompson speak to this item. We have had this up in the committee before, so this is, I think, the final piece. But we will start out with, I believe, Mr. Johnson for testimony on it.
Mr. Chairman, we intend to vote on this then.
On item number 3, yes, I'm sorry. Is that Alderman Hopkins?
Yeah, thank you. Just to clarify the intention. Okay, thank you.
Yes, item number 3 is a vote. Thank you.
And Chairman, I'll be doing the testimony today. Tim Jeffries.
Tim, there you go.
Yep. Good morning, Chairman Wagesback and members of the Finance Committee. For the record, my name is Tim Jeffries, Deputy Commissioner in the Department of Planning and Development. I'm here today to request the amendment of a previously approved redevelopment agreement between the city and Our Revival Chicago LLC for the purpose of redeveloping the Ramova Theater. The Ramova Theater is located at 3518 South Halsted Street in the Bridgeport community area and the 11th Ward. The building originally opened in 1929 as a movie theater, but closed in 1985 and has been vacant since. The city acquired the theater in 2001 and then the adjacent lot in 2006. The proposed project will redevelop the existing 39,000 square foot building into a music venue, restaurant, and brewery at an estimated cost of $28 million. This includes the total redevelopment of the interior building, the construction of a small addition, and the restoration of the historic facade. The RDA for the Ramova Theater was initially approved by City Council on April 24th, 2002, and authorized the use of $6.64 million in TIF assistance, as well as the write down of city-owned land and the adjacent lot for $1. COVID-19, however, has had a significant impact on the project, including finalizing financing and the construction timeline, and as a result, the developer has not been able to yet start the project. These issues have been now resolved, but 35th and Halsted TIF district is nearing its expiration on December 31st of this year. In order to accommodate the projects under this constraint, DPD proposes the following amendments. The first is to modify the payment structure to provide TIF funds to the developer once the project reaches 30% completion. In turn, the developer will provide a letter of credit to the city for $3.4 million, which will be used as security. The city will release $1.7 million from the letter of credit at 75% completion, and then the remainder at the project completion. Funds will still be structured as a forgivable loan, and the protections provided by that loan are unchanged. We'll additionally increase the TIF funds by $175,000. These will address the costs associated with the letter of credit. And finally, we'll extend both the commencement deadline to June 30th of this year and the overall completion deadline to June 30th of 2022. Overall, DPD supports this amendment for the same reasons we supported the original RDA, namely that it will reestablish the historic Ramova Theater, which has sat vacant for more than 30 years. The strategic location of the site and the proposed uses will help catalyze further activity along Halsted Street. Additionally, the developer has agreed to designate the property as a historic landmark, which will preserve the unique character of this property. Finally, the project is expected to create 80 permanent full-time jobs upon completion and an additional 110 construction jobs. So in closing, I just thank you for your consideration of this request, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I'm also joined by Tyler Nevius from Revival Chicago, the developer of the project.
Thank you, Tim. Before I go on to Alderman Thompson and any questions, I want to recognize Alderman Michael Scott as present for purposes of quorum.
Cardenas is here as well, Chairman.
There you go. Okay, Alderman Cardenas as well. All right, Alderman Smith and Alderman Irvin, did you want to hear from Alderman Thompson first or speak directly to?
Oh, of course, I want to hear from Alderman Thompson first.
Yeah,
of course.
I can wait as well.
Mr. Chair. Right, Alderman Thompson.
Mr. Chair, before I had questions about it as well. You lowered my hand, but I had questions as well.
Oops, sorry. Okay, let's hear from Alderman Thompson, then Alderman Scott, you can jump in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to my colleagues. As Tim mentioned, this was previously approved. It was actually April 24th of 2020. I think he misspoke and said 2002, but it was 2020.
Yes, sorry.
No problem. And just to clarify the record, I also appreciate Tyler Nevius and the development team, their council, for all their hard work and their perseverance here. As we saw this historic pandemic hit our city, many projects went on the wayside and developers went away, and I appreciate their commitment and willingness to continue to work. I also want to thank Tim and his team from DPD for all of their hard work to be creative and making sure that this project happens. This is something that my community has been eager, looking for something along this commercial corridor of Halsted Street. And to have a project like this, it'll truly be a catalyst for other parts of that block and for our entire community. It'll also benefit the city of Chicago with the jobs it's going to create, as well as the tax revenues that we anticipate from having a live venue facility along with the restaurant. So it is not only helpful to the 11th Ward and the Bridgeport community, I think it'll be helpful to the entire city. And I would respectfully request my colleagues' support for this project. I'm sure the team assembled here can answer any questions, and I do appreciate would appreciate your support. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Alderman. Let's start out with Alderman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to congratulate my colleague. Again, in the time of COVID and having so many projects that have not come to fruition, it's a testament to your hard work and to the hard work of the team that has been assembled. So congratulations. Just a couple of questions for me. this is a theater venue with about how many seats once it's completed? How many seats seated venue?
Tyler, could you answer that question, please?
Tyler, if you could state your name and title first, would be helpful. Tyler, are you available to answer that question? There
Yes,
you
I'm here. Apologies.
Thank you.
First time joining in this manner. Yeah, Tyler Nevis. I am the manager and founder of Our Revival Chicago. This venue will have 1,600 capacity for 1,600, and it will be general admittance as the primary format, but we will also have certain programming that will be seated as well.
And there's a restaurant that is attached to the venue. Is it attached? Is it attached to the venue like a sitting theater, or is this a restaurant in addition to those 1,600 seats?
This is a small restaurant in addition to those 1,600 seats. We're actually bringing back the Remova Grill, which closed unfortunately in 2012. Chef Kevin Hickey will be managing that for us. He's also from the community.
Okay. And then this is probably for Tim. Can you? I'm just kind of a little bit confused about the structure in which was set up. If I'm not mistaken, you said it's about 6.3 in TIF assistance, correct?
The new
Go ahead.
The new value is about 6.8 million.
Okay,
It's going
6.8.
slightly up. And basically, the TIF district is coming to an end on December.
Right. It ends at the end of the year. So you said by the 31st of December, we're going to give them. Can you just go through that again? Just
sure.
Walk me through that again.
So I guess this is all predicated on the fact that after the TIF district expires, we can't make payments legally.
Right.
We lose the ability to make payments. So in December of this year, provided the developer has completed at least 30% of the construction, we will give them the full balance of TIF owed to them under this RDA, which 6.8 thereabouts. In exchange, they will give us a letter of credit in the event that something happens. We have full confidence in the development team, but it's development, stuff happens. And we'll have that letter of credit for about $3.4 million, and we'll hold on to it. So if anything happens, we have the letter of credit. It's functionally cash. And then as the developer finishes the project, we'll reduce the amount and then finally release it in total once the city issue the CFC, the certificate of completion. Apologies.
Oh, okay. I missed the part of giving them. Numbers didn't add up to me when I was doing it. I didn't know. I got it. We given the entire balance up front. As long as there is 30% completion as of the 31st of December, correct?
I think it's December 1, so we have time to process the payment. But yes, it's December of this year. They must finish 30% of construction completion by then. What
happens? Two questions. What happens if they don't get there? And then maybe to the developers, where do they think they would be at this point, the December 1, in terms of construction?
If they don't complete by December, we wouldn't be able to disperse funds. So we would disperse no dollars. And then I'll defer to Tyler on where he expects to be.
Based upon our reviews with the construction team and our broader group that we pulled together, we anticipate being around 35% complete based upon that timeline. So we've got a little bit of room.
Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions. Again, Alderman Thompson, congratulations. Congratulations to your team, and hope this is a success in your ward.
Thank you, Alderman. Tyler, stay there in case there's other questions, please. Alderman Smith.
Yes, my first question, hello, Tim, hope you're doing well. How often does this happen that you have given extensions like this?
Extensions for a project wasn't complete, and then we bring it back to council for an amendment, or
I'll ask that first.
It's not unheard of, but it's rare. Maybe 1 to 2 a year at most. We'll bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is wholly driven by COVID.
For sure. And,
I think we
and how-
introduced this item in May or March. So it was and obviously the whole ramp up for us on that. I think that when we introduced it, COVID was not on anyone's radar.
And how often do plan developments in general sort of peter out? So occasionally, I think I actually have one in my ward that's about to expire without having been built, a small one. But I'm just curious, how often do they just don't get built and no one, and you have a decision about whether or not to extend it after the 6 years?
For a plan development, I'd need to, I can go to my colleagues in the zoning department and figure that out, but I'm not, I can't give you a good answer on that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, listen, I thank you. And Alderman Thompson, this looks like a terrific project. It's inline retail. It's trying to revive a neighborhood downtown, which is really what we're always trying to do, our neighborhood downtowns, in order to keep our communities vital. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That's all I had.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Urban?
Mr. Chairman, my question was answered by Scott on the issue with the TIF. Just it was clarified. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. All right, Alderman Dowell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to congratulate my colleague who is just west of the 3rd ward, and I passed by this location, so I know that he expects it to revitalize that area, and I can see how that will happen. I just have a question for Mr. Jeffries. Just quickly, the 6.8 million in TIF represents what percentage of the total development costs?
It is, just give me 1 sec, it's 6.8 of 28.2, so that is about 24%.
24%. Okay, that's in line with policy. And then my second question is, and this is more probably for the alderman, where is parking for that facility?
If Chair, do you want me to answer that? I know she addressed the question, but I'll wait to be acknowledged.
Yeah, Alderman, if you have the answer, go ahead. Alderman Thompson.
Sure. Thank you, Alderman Dowell. So there's another parcel across the street that was a surface parking lot for many years, and it has sat idle. And as part of this overall project acquisition, working with the developer, they are acquiring that parcel, and that will be it'll be across the street. So there's going to be a parking lot across the street that will service it.
All right, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Dowell. Alderman Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to congratulate Alderman Thompson and offer my full support for this project. I know what this project means to the neighborhood. As a sentimental and nostalgic attachment to the theater, and to have it revitalized after so many years of vacancy is a strong symbol that the neighborhood is on its way back to full economic activity in the post-pandemic years. My parents dated there when they were teenagers, and grew up hearing the stories. Personally, I'm looking forward to my first bowl of Ramova grilled chili after it reopens. So congratulations, Alderman Thompson, on getting this across the finish line.
Thank you, Alderman Hopkins. Alderman Quinn.
Yeah, just wanted to add my voice to the congratulations to Alderman Thompson. He's worked very hard on this. I wish you nothing but the best.
All right. Alderman Thompson, did you want to say any closing comments?
Other than just, I appreciate the remarks from my colleagues, and again, would respectfully request a positive vote for this project. I think it will be great for not only my community, but the city again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. May I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
How about if we have it from
somebody else?
Yeah. How about Alderman Hopkins has a motion to approve this item along with the chili 02021-1651 by the affirmative vote of all members present for the roll call used to establish quorum. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the motion carries. Congratulations, Alderman. All right, item number 4, ladies and gentlemen. Item number 4 is a communication recommending a proposed ordinance regarding the authority to issue multifamily revenue bonds for West Haven Park 2D LLC for acquisition and construction of low-income housing development at 145 North Damon Avenue in the 27th Ward. As a reminder, I believe this one is the inducement for the bond. This is just the language for bond inducement. I think we have Mr. Jeffries that's going to provide. See, do you have that up, Jeff, or Tim, or is it Jim that's going to provide the testimony?
It's me, Jim O'Connell with Housing.
Okay, Jim. So this project will come back to the committee and council again upon issuance, but we do have Jim O'Connell from Housing to testify on this matter, and then Alderman Burnett to speak to it as well. So Jim, why don't you go ahead and start with your presentation?
Great, thank you. And you can see the slide deck and hear
Yes,
this
we can.
correctly? Okay, great. So good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Jim O'Connell, and I am a project manager with the Department of Housing. This is West Haven Park 2D. It's at 145 North Damon in the near west side community with 27th Ward with Alderman Walter Burnett Jr. Department of Housing is, as stated, is here for you. Here today just for bond inducement only, and the full financing ordinance is expected in September at this point. Here's an aerial map showing its location on the southeast corner of Damon and Lake and proximity to the United Center. It's located midway through the larger West Haven Park redevelopment area, and it's directly across the street from the new CTA station at Damon and Lake that will be opening soon. And here's a rendering of the project, again, with the new CTA Green Line station to the left. The project was actually purposely has a tiered tower massing to act as a sort of gateway to the neighborhood, which is a nice element of the project. So West Haven is the 7th and final phase of the CHA Henry Horner Homes redevelopment. CHA is actually under consent decree with legal obligation to return a certain amount of public housing units, and this will fulfill that as well as close out their Hope 6 funding. So what's most exciting is this is the first CHA plan for transformation site to be demolished. It's the first to go through this substantial redevelopment, and it's the first to finish. So it's a huge milestone for CHA and the city, and not only for fulfilling the consent decree, but again, for completing this and largely completing this entire mixed income neighborhood. So this phase will be a 12-story, 96-unit new construction building. It'll include mixed income households and over 4,000 square feet of commercial space. There will be 82 one-bedrooms, 14 two-bedrooms, and of those, 5 are at 50% AMI, 55 at 60% AMI, 3 at 80, and 33 market rate. And amenities will include community room, exercise and yoga room, business center, bike room, roof deck, on-site management. And total development cost for this will be $41.8 million, with $12.2 million from CHA, $10 million in TIF, $8.2 million in 4% LIHTC equity, $6.3 in DOH multifamily funds, and a $2.3 million private loan and $2 million in seller financing. The development team, so the owner will be a project-specific entity named WHP2D LLC, but the developer and sponsor are, for all intents and purposes, Brinshore Michaels. They're very well known to DOH, and they have a number of projects across the city. They've completed 20 phases of other CHA redevelopment projects, including all other phases of West Haven. This joint venture alone has created over 1,200 units of mixed income development in Chicago. And what's notable, for the general contractor, McShane, has entered into a joint venture with an MBE firm called Ashlar Construction. So to reiterate, this is the final phase for Henry Horner Homes, and the main community input takes place via the Horner Working Group, to whose RFP Brinshore Michaels responded. It's similar to other, it's similar, for example, to Ickes or Southbridge, in that you have these standing meetings with representatives of the former families, CHA and the developer. It's pretty well known and codified, and they have additional community-wide meetings as well. And plans for various phases have been presented at least 6 occasions. They adhere to the group's guidelines, and meetings have been held with Alderman Burnett. And similar to all their DOH projects, this goes through DOH's design review and DPD's design review. So that concludes my presentation for bond inducement. Please let me know if you have any other questions.
Thank you, Jim, for that presentation. Alderman Burnett, did you want to add anything before we take questions?
Sure. I just want to say I'm in full support of this. It's great to be able to come to a completion of one of these developments that we've been working on these things for over 20 years. I think about 23, 24 years maybe. So it's good to come to a completion. This is a beautiful design. I appreciate the Department of Housing for all of the work that they've done on this. And hopefully we would get some other Hope 6 developments completed. I still have Rockwell and Cabrini Green to work on, but this is a good step in the right direction. So appreciate everyone's support on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Seeing no questions on this item, Alderman Dowell makes a motion to approve this item 0221-1653 by the affirmative vote of all members present for the roll call used to establish quorum. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the motion carries. Congratulations, Alderman. Thank you, Jim, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to communications from the Department of Law. Item number 5 is the monthly report of judgment, verdicts, and settlements from the Department of Law for the month of April. This will be placed on file with the clerk. Are there any questions? All right. 1 second. Items 6 and 7 are authorizations for the payment of various small claims against the city and the denial of payment of various small claims against the city. If there's no objection, these items will be placed in the omnibus. Item 8 is a proposed order for tag day permits on behalf of Children International Foundation for citywide tags, the Nature Conservancy for citywide tags, and the United Breast Cancer Foundation Incorporated for citywide tags. Again, all these will be for tag day permits in the month of September and November. If there's no objection, these items will be placed in the omnibus. Alderman Moore.
I don't know if I misheard you. On your first one, did you say the settlements?
No, I did not. Item 6 and 7, excuse me, item number 5 was the monthly report of judgment, verdicts, and settlements from the Department of Law. And we have not reached the settlement discussion yet.
Okay.
The supplemental agenda.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the agenda, and we will now move to the supplemental agenda. For the supplemental agenda, we have 3 items from the Department of Law, 3 proposed orders authorizing Corporation Counsel to enter into and execute settlement orders in the following cases, which we'll hear separately. A is Anthony Tucker versus City of Chicago in the amount of $500,000. B is DeAndre Jones versus City of Chicago in the amount of $250,000. And C is a proposed pre-litigation settlement with One Chicago Square in the amount of $410,000. And to speak to these items today from the Department of Law is Renee Rodney. Renee, are you ready to roll there?
I'm here. Thank you, Chairman.
And we will start out with Tucker item number A. You went on mute, Renee.
Apologies. For the record, my name is Renee Rodney, First Assistant Corporation Counsel. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. I'm here to present 3 settlements for consideration. The first settlement is in the matter of Anthony Tucker versus City of Chicago. It stems from a federal lawsuit brought by the plaintiff, Anthony Tucker, against the city and various CPD detectives, in which Tucker alleged unlawful detention and malicious prosecution. Plaintiff's claims stem from his 2016 acquittal of first-degree murder. Plaintiff's civil claims against the city and the detectives went to trial in September 2019. After the close of the evidence and during plaintiff's counsel's rebuttal argument, counsel made an improper argument which prompted the city's attorneys to move for a mistrial. While this motion was pending, the jury returned a verdict for $750,000 on plaintiff's unlawful pretrial detention claim. After the verdict, the city renewed its motion for a mistrial, which the court granted and ordered a new trial. In lieu of retrying the case, the law department recommends settling the matter for $500,000, inclusive of attorney's fees and costs, as a cost-effective means of reducing exposure to the city. By way of background, on February 16, 2014, plaintiff Anthony Tucker was arrested and charged with first-degree murder following an armed robbery on Chicago's West Side. Plaintiff's arrest was largely based on information provided by 2 eyewitnesses who identified the plaintiff as the shooter. At plaintiff's criminal trial, one of the eyewitnesses testified that her video recorded statement was coerced and that plaintiff was not actually the person who committed the murder. The second eyewitness fell asleep during her trial testimony. At the close of the prosecution's case, the criminal court judge granted plaintiff's motion for a directive finding of acquittal based on the testimony and behavior of both eyewitnesses during the trial. Following plaintiff's acquittal, he filed the instant civil case in 2017 against the city and various CPD detectives. In 2019, plaintiff amended his complaint and alleged unlawful pretrial detention, malicious prosecution, and respondeat superior. The civil case went to trial in September 2019. During plaintiff's case, he attempted to prove his innocence by presenting evidence of an alibi, challenging the believability of the witnesses the detectives relied on for probable cause, and arguing that the detectives attempted to suppress his alibi. In turn, the city's attorneys introduced into evidence surveillance footage consistent with the recollection of the eyewitnesses, showed that plaintiff was later identified by both eyewitnesses in a physical lineup, and presented video recorded statements from the eyewitnesses in which they identified plaintiff as the shooter. At the close of the evidence, the attorneys gave their summations. During plaintiff's rebuttal argument, his attorney argued that the city failed to present evidence that plaintiff ever used a gun or was known to carry a gun. However, this argument was disingenuous because plaintiff's attorney was aware that by virtue of the court's order, the city was prevented from presenting evidence of plaintiff's prior conviction for aggravated battery with a firearm. The city's attorneys objected, and the objection was sustained. The city made an oral motion for a mistrial based on opposing counsel's violation of the court's order regarding plaintiff's prior conviction, which the court took under advisement. Meanwhile, the jury returned a verdict for $750,000 in favor of plaintiff on his unlawful pretrial detention claim. The city renewed its motion for a mistrial, which the court granted and ordered a new trial. If this case is retrialed, there is a substantial risk of an adverse verdict. Despite the city's presentation at the first trial, the jury still returned a favorable verdict for the plaintiff. In addition, at a retrial, plaintiff is likely to learn from any missteps at the first trial and present a more streamlined case. Based on the risks presented by retrying the case and associated expenses, the law department recommends settling the matter for $500,000, inclusive of attorney's fees and costs. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions from Alderman?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to be recorded as a no.
Alderman Raboris, I've got you there. Alderman Irvin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I just have one question to First Assistant Rodney. How much does this litigation cost us on our side of the ledger, exclusive of the settlement?
Well, the matter was handled by our in-house FCRL attorneys. So it's cost us attorney time and resources as far as trying the case and preparing to try the case. Let me see if I can get you some additional information. I know that the matter's been heavily litigated since 2017. It went to trial in 2019, so that was 2 full years at that point. And then dealing with the post-trial settlements was additional time.
So there've been no external cost, to the city on the litigation. It's all been done by in-house counsel?
Yes.
Okay, well, number one, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you guys are staffing up so that we don't have these exorbitant external legal bills. So I am happy to hear that you all have moved in that direction. So if that is the case, then thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman Irvin. And seeing that there's no other questions, I have a motion from Alderman Irvin to approve this item by the affirmative vote of all members present for the roll call used to establish quorum, with the exception of Alderman Raboris, who wishes to vote no. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And Alderman Raboris, I have you as a no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, item number, B is DeAndre Jones versus City of Chicago in the amount of $250,000. And Renee Rodney will speak to that item now.
Thank you. The second proposed settlement involves a malicious prosecution lawsuit brought by plaintiff DeAndre Jones after CPD officers arrested him for narcotics possession during a traffic stop. Plaintiff spent 93 days in Cook County Jail and was later acquitted of the narcotics charge after the criminal court judge found that the prosecutors failed to prove plaintiff possessed the narcotics. In the civil case against the city, the presiding judge found that the police lacked probable cause to arrest plaintiff for narcotics possession, which ruling would significantly hinder the city's ability to prevail at trial. As a result, the law department recommends settling this matter for $250,000 as a cost-effective measure to limit the city's financial exposure. On May 20th, 2015, 2 CPD officers were traveling down an alley and observed plaintiff and his passenger in plaintiff's vehicle with their seatbelts unfastened. After initiating a traffic stop and running a check on plaintiff's identification, the officers learned that plaintiff's driver's license was suspended. Upon this discovery, one of the officers returned to plaintiff's vehicle and asked him to exit the car. Plaintiff instead put the car in drive and fled. The officers then followed plaintiff's vehicle in their squad car. While following plaintiff's vehicle, the officers observed plaintiff's car slow down to allow his passenger to exit and flee on foot. One of the officers exited the squad car and began chasing the vehicle's passenger. During the chase, the passenger was observed dropping a bag of cocaine, which the officer recovered. Soon after, the passenger was apprehended and placed under arrest. Meanwhile, the other officer continued to follow plaintiff in his squad car. Plaintiff subsequently stopped his vehicle and was placed under arrest for possession of a controlled substance. Plaintiff claims that during the arrest, the officer punched him and used racial slurs, which the officer denies. The arresting officer made the decision to charge plaintiff with felony possession of a controlled substance. Plaintiff spent 93 days in jail before he was able to post bond. Plaintiff subsequently was found not guilty at a bench trial after the judge found the prosecutors failed to establish that plaintiff possessed the narcotics. The case carries a substantial risk of an adverse verdict if it proceeds to trial. The presiding judge in the civil case found that the arresting officers did not have probable cause to arrest plaintiff as a matter of law. Specifically, the judge found that the officers never observed plaintiff exercise control over the cocaine that his passenger was carrying. As a result of this finding, the city will not be able to contest the matter at trial. In addition, the city anticipates the plaintiff will testify that the officer punched him and used racial slurs while placing him under arrest. Although we would dispute that this occurred, the risk exists of losing on the element of malice in plaintiff's malicious prosecution claim. To support the damages element of the claim, we anticipate that plaintiff would testify to the emotional harm he suffered from his 93 days of incarceration, which he would attempt to corroborate through the testimony of his girlfriend. Based on a review of prior jury awards in cases involving similar claims, the law department believes that if this case is not settled, there is a high likelihood that plaintiff will prevail at trial and receive an award of more than $250,000. Therefore, this proposed settlement, which is inclusive of attorney's fees and costs, is a cost-effective measure to limit the city's financial exposure. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Renee. We have a question from Alderman Moore. Alderman Moore. All right, I'll hold that. Why don't we hold that for a second? Alderman Raboris?
No question, Mr. Chairman. Just want to be recorded as a no.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman David Moore?
Thank you so much. I want to be recorded as voting no on this item.
Okay, Alderman Napolitano.
Thank you, Chairman. Please hold me down as a no.
Just look through these here. Did anyone else wish to speak to this matter? All right. Then I have a motion to approve this item from Alderman Burnett by the affirmative vote of all members present for the roll call used to establish quorum with the exception of Alderman Moore, Boyris, and Napolitano. Anyone else? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the motion carries with those exceptions. Thank you, Renee. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we have the proposed pre-litigation settlement with One Chicago Square, which Ms. Rodney will speak to now.
Thank you. The third proposed settlement for your consideration stems from a claim by the developer of the One Chicago Square high-rise construction project in River North, or OCS. Specifically, OCS claims that a sewer line in the subway drift tunnel encroached on its property. OCS and the property owner have asserted costs against the city for the relocation of the sewer line and have also demanded additional costs related to construction delays resulting from the relocation of both systems. The parties negotiated a settlement for the relocation of the city's sewer line in the amount of $410,000 in exchange for a release of all claims related to the discovery of both the drift tunnel and sewer line. The law department recommends approving this settlement to reduce financial exposure to the city were the matter to proceed through litigation. In mid-2019, the developer of the One Chicago Square project and its subcontractors were conducting site work in preparation for the construction of a large apartment complex at State Street and Chicago Avenue when two city utilities were discovered on OCS's property. One was a drift tunnel used for removal of construction debris in connection with the State and Lake Red Line Station built in the 1930s. And the second was a sewer line installed at the direction of the city in the 2000s. Due to the age of the incursions, the city was unable to determine whether the previous owner consented to the use of the drift tunnel or whether either incursion had the benefit of an easement over the land. OCS demanded payment from the city for the delays it claimed were related to the relocation of the incursions on the site. The law department's analysis of the matter determined that OCS likely has a claim against the city for subterranean trespass and could seek damages related to remedying the trespass and associated delays. Although the developer acquired the land years after the original trespass occurred, it can maintain a trespass action regardless of whether they were the owner at the time the trespass took place. In response, the city could raise the affirmative defense of consent or knowledge of the sewer line. However, this would be complicated due to the age of the utilities and because the city has been unable to locate any documentation suggesting that the entry to the land was authorized. Alternatively, the city may argue that any claim by OCS is barred by the 10-year statute of repose for improvements to land, regardless of when it should have been discovered. We anticipate, however, that OCS would challenge the nature of the city's activity and whether it qualified as an improvement. This is a fact-specific inquiry that would likely require discovery, would be easier to show for the sewer line than the drift tunnel. Finally, much of the case would center on damages OCS would seek for any delay in construction. This would require an extensive discovery and fact-intensive litigation. In efforts to settle this matter without resorting to litigation, the city requested and received documentation related to cost OCS claimed resulted from the relocation of the city's sewer line on its property, which were reviewed by CDOT. Ultimately, CDOT determined that only a limited amount of OCS's proffered evidence showed delays or costs traceable to relocating the sewer line. In particular, it determined that a proposed change item represented an approximately 2.5-day delay in associated construction costs. Ultimately, the parties agreed upon a settlement of $410,000 in exchange for a release from the owner of the OCS site. The law department recommends approval of this settlement as a cost-effective means of reducing financial exposure to the city were the matter to proceed through litigation. May I answer any questions?
Thank you, Renee. Alderman Cardenas has, actually Alderman Hairston first and then Alderman Cardenas. Vice Chair Hairston.
Thank you, Chair. What due diligence did the department that should have had the records do?
With respect to the sewer line, CDOT was unable to locate records that might establish that the prior owner had consented to the use of that site for this sewer line.
So what did they do to determine what steps did they take? Did they go to the recorder of deeds? Did they go to, what steps did they take other than to say, we can't find the records?
As I sit here right now, I don't know what specific steps they took, but I can find that out and submit that to the committee through the chair.
And would CDOT be the keeper of those records or would it be the law department?
I believe it would be CDOT. I mean, the law department worked with CDOT to investigate this issue and relied on their review of any internal documentation they had with respect to the building of the sewer line and where it was placed.
Okay, and what about the tunnel?
Based on the age of the tunnel dating back to the 1930s, there is no documentation about what easement may have existed back almost a century ago when that subway drift tunnel was built. So that's another complication of this case.
There are people from the 1930s that are still alive today, so it's not that far back. So I just want to know what steps we took. You know, did we go back and look at the plat maps? Did we, you know, do our due diligence other than saying it's just not here? That's what I'm interested in knowing. So if you could get that the information to me, I'd be most appreciative. Thank you. No further questions, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Hopefully they weren't in the basement when the flood took place.
Yeah, but even if they are not kept within the city, if there are easements, as you know, the recorder might have that, and they do have those old documents. It takes a little bit of work, but they do exist.
Would you just like then, Ms. Rodney, to try to get that through the chair to you and the members?
Yeah, I'm just curious as to what they did. Yeah.
Okay, will do. And Dan, just so you know, Dan Burke from CDOT, he's I think, really focused on bridge and infrastructure, but we did speak to him, and I will make sure that we reach out and try to get any information we have from him as well. Alderman Cardenas.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I guess I'm worried about precedent. I mean, I can think of many instances where this is probably very similar in nature, where developers find ingress or egress of that the city should have documented, and they just didn't, or records were missed. You're going back to 1930s where probably things were done somewhat different. So my concern is again, it's precedent. How is this going to impact other scenarios where the city's going to face potential looming lawsuits every time this happens, right? Usually the city just says, look, no harm, no foul. Our staff or our departments did it. You do your part, we do our part. We'll give you the permits, we expedite the project. In that way, we make you whole to some extent, but to give them money on top of relocating the sewer as well, I don't know what that cost is going to be or was. I'd like to know that part of it. I just got great concerns about it, but I would like a little more debate on it. And I'm just fearful of setting precedent that could potentially harm the city financially.
Alderman, a similar question came up during the briefing that Dan Burke from CDOT represented that what happened in this case was an aberration. So they did not anticipate similar claims popping up like this in the future. The proposed settlement is for $410,000 based on CDOT's review of that 2.5 day delay and associated costs. They calculated expenses to be approximately $358,000, which was an amount that we offered, and they countered at a higher number, and the parties ultimately came to the $410,000 figure.
Wow, I don't know. I don't know. I don't. This is a first that I faced in terms of making a decision that we have to pay somebody so that they can build a project. It's usually the other way around. So I don't know. You're suggesting that we take it at face value and CDOT's assessment is correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, taking it at face value would have been to accept OCS's claim of over $1 million in damages. And CDOT did their own analysis of information that OCS provided and came up with a much lower figure of $358,000. And as what happens in settlement negotiations, the parties offer their own perspective, and then ultimately the conclusion was reached that each side could live with $410,000.
What's the size of the project, for my ask? What is the size of the project? Are we talking a project that is in the millions and millions of dollars?
I suspect it's a high-rise apartment building in the River North, Streeterville, Gold Coast area. So I don't have a precise number on the cost of the project, but it is certainly a large residential construction project, yes.
And where's the project now? Is it still on hold?
No, the incursions were discovered in mid-2019. I mean, just from my own observation, there's a high rise that has been built. I don't
right?
know if people live there yet, but a high rise is in that spot.
So you don't want to litigate it, basically saying that things have been built, we could potentially lose this.
Right, there's certainly risks, and I mean, an expense associated with going forward through litigation that might yield a number higher than what we settled for, and also the time and expense going toward litigating the damages.
Got it. I guess this question is not for the chair. Chairman, has your team looked at this item and have they vetted everything, given us better comfort as to its approval? Chairman, are you there? I guess I'm looking to you, Chairman, to your team has looked at this item. I mean, if you vetted this item, I feel comfortable that you obviously also sign off on it and say, hey, yeah, I vetted this thing, and you know, for me, I just feel better about it. I can't hear you. Sorry. Go ahead.
Kamal.
Oh, look, you're back on. Awesome.
Okay, I don't know what that was. Somebody just gave me some other headphones. Yeah, Alderman, we had similar questions in the briefing. We had Dan Burke in there to go through some of the difficulties of gauging the situation here, looking at as many documents as they could find, and then working with the law department. A 2-day hold on an $800+ million project. It sounds like it also came at a time when they had to move some of the timing on this thing that added up to the $410,000. But as far as I looked at it, and I think the other aldermen that were in the briefings that had very good questions similar to you, what you've asked, between the law department, I think Lisa Misher was on the call as well. Dan Burke really answered some of the questions about this being an aberration or not a normal occurrence that would not set precedent. But we were with the size of this project, I think the amount that they were looking at negotiated out was appropriate.
No, thank you. I wanted to make sure that you know, a lot of eyes were on this. I think precedent, such a terrible thing for the city to be on, not to mention all the other settlements. Now developers suing the city for these kinds of things that would not be good. But thank you. I'll support it based on your recommendation.
Okay, thank you for the questions. All right, are there any other questions on that? Seeing no other questions, before I move to make the motion, I missed calling on Alderman Curtis. He is present for purposes of quorum. And on this item, I have Alderman O'Shea making a motion to approve item C by the affirmative vote of all members present for the purposes of the roll call used to establish quorum. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No. Alderman Hairston is a no until I get my information.
Okay. Anyone else along with Alderman Hairston, Vice Chair?
She getting hers already.
All right. In the opinion of the chair,
I got some from my backyard.
Alderman Harris, you're off mute there. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Renee Rodney for her presentation. Thank all of you for being here today. Great questions. And I will see you at 1 o'clock for the Joint Committee on Public Safety. Take a look at your email. We did send out information, I believe, last night. And if you don't have it, we can send it again. But we will see you at 1 o'clock. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Motion
moved.
to adjourn.
From Alderman Cardenas, I have a motion to adjourn the Committee on Finance. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and motion carries.
Thank you.
Ladies
Thank
and
you,
gentlemen.
Renee.
Have a good afternoon.